Coming to fast bowling and the dearth of genuinely quick bowlers in the game right now, how much of that you spoke about scheduling earlier, how much do you put down to the scheduling alone?
I think it's mainly because of the scheduling where you don't see a lot of great fast bowlers anymore, or even if it's not great fast bowlers, just a number of fast bowlers that you see in world cricket anymore. It's pretty difficult to ask anyone to be bowling fast for 9 months of the year. And I made mention of the fact earlier on that teams have to be thinking about resting players and having scheduled, you can play these few games and take a break and coming back for that tour. I don't think that's the best way going forward for test match cricket. It might be okay for the shorter form of the game because it's all about entertainment and being able to get back onto the field whenever, because it's just a one-day game. But as far as test match cricket is concerned, the schedule is playing havoc with that. I think test matches and test cricket is great when you have a lot of fast bowlers in the teams all over the world, and I'm not too sure you're going to get too much more of that.
But if you go back to, say, the 1980s when you were at your peak, lots of players played county cricket. A lot of players played county cricket. They had heavy workloads there as well. What do you think the difference is now? Do you just think international cricket just takes that much more out of you?
International cricket takes a lot more out of you than county cricket. And what I'll tell you from my own experience, I played county cricket for Derbyshire for about 5 years. I never went to the nets. It was necessary to go to the nets. All you need to do was keep yourself fit. And I might have been a little bit different in that I didn't need to be keeping bowling to be able to bowl the ball where I wanted to bowl it when the time came for a match. But it is obvious that playing in county cricket is not as intensive as playing in test matches. When you see anybody, any overseas cricketer playing county cricket, they go there and they are trying their guts out, yes, because they are an overseas cricketer and they want to impress, they are being paid well and they want to make sure that they perform. But it's still a greater intensity when you're playing for your country. And the English guys who are playing county cricket, it's a similar situation. When they're playing county cricket, yes, they want to perform. But again, you ramp yourself up when you're playing for your country. You find that extra bit of adrenaline, you find that extra bit of energy, and it's a much higher intensity. So playing for your country is a lot different.
Speaking of playing for your country, playing for the West Indies, one series defeat in nearly 2 decades, and that too in a series marred by pretty ordinary umpiring. The 4 fast bowlers were central to that, to the strategy that Clive Lloyd had. At the time, there were people, not just in the UK but elsewhere as well, who said it was bad for the game, that it wasn't cricket, it was intimidating, it was intimidatory bowling. How do you look back on that phase now?
Well, the only thing I say, Dileep, is that the game has changed a great deal and people's perceptions and perspectives have changed. People are quite happy to accept it now because England used 4 fast bowlers in 2005 to win the Ashes. Our members have said on so many occasions in the past that when Ricky Ponting got hit on his face at Lord's and drew blood, people in the stands were cheering. Now, in our day in the 70s and 80s, people would have been booing and saying that's not cricket and that sort of a thing. I'm happy that people are now willing to accept that fast bowling is a part of the game. A lot of teams now looking for fast bowlers, and any team that can produce 4 fast bowlers will play them every time. And they know fast bowlers win games. And they are now happy to accept that fast bowling being a part of the game can win you games, and that's what we did. We had them, we used them, we won games. Simple as that.
Winning games, you won a lot in your time. Australia won a lot under Waugh and Ponting. South Africa have now gone 8 years without losing an away test series. How do you contrast that team that you played for? I know it's hard to compare across generations, but how do you contrast the team that you played for with, say, Waugh's Australians or the South Africans that Graham Smith captained?
Because I was a member of that team, I wouldn't want to be comparing the team that I played with any other team, because obviously I'm going to be biased. I leave that to others. I don't want to be comparing that at all. I just leave people to look at the results, look at what happened whenever Australia played against great fast bowlers, whether they were 1, 2, 3 in the opposition team. Similarly, what happened when we played. I don't want to be comparing. I just would leave people to look and to assess themselves.
The batsmen that you bowled to, if I could ask you to pick out the best 3.
Wow, that is a difficult task. I bowl against a lot of great batsmen. I never played a test match against Pakistan, but I played some one-day games against them, and they had some fantastic players. You know, when you think about test match cricket alone, here in India, I played bowl against Sunil Gavaskar, great batsman. When you think about English batsmen, you think about Gooch and Gower, fantastic players. My first tour to Australia, two chapels, well, maybe because I was a youth, they'd seem more like cathedrals than chapels. And since then, you know, when you bowl against people like Alan Border, there are just so many great players around in my time. I wouldn't be able to pick out one or two, or even three or four. There are a lot of great players playing all over the world.
But are there a couple of passages of play that stick out in your memory even now?
As a bowler, I look back on instances when I think somebody really took advantage of me or got the better of me, and not just by getting runs, but making you feel a little bit sheepish. And I remember one instance going to Ian Chappell in Barbados. I think it might even have been World Series cricket, the World Series cricket game in Barbados. That will live with me forever, when Ian Chappell pretty much tore me apart. He just played some fantastic shots because he was a great hooker and a cutter. And in Barbados, when the ball isn't swinging around, as you know, it's not going to do a lot. You tend to bowl a little bit short, and I was too short. And he really hammered me all over the park. And I remember that clearly. There have been other instances when I've bowled and gotten tired and just have been unable to get batsmen out. Sunil Gavaskar made a double century here in 1983, I think, at Madras. That was tough bowling to Sunil that day, but it wasn't the sort of innings that you go back to the dressing room and feel embarrassed about. He didn't destroy, he made runs and he played some fantastic shots. And other instances like David Gower, because you know the flashing blade of David Gower at times can look so attractive and that sort of thing. But there aren't too many occasions when I would walk back to the dressing room and not be able to hold my head up and feel embarrassed. But that one with Ian Chappell, I certainly remember that one.
The current crop of batsmen, we've spoken about this in the past as well, because they face so few genuinely quick bowlers. Do you think that's led in some ways to a deterioration in technique, especially against the short ball?
That has contributed to it, yes. I think also helmets have contributed a lot to batsmen who grew up on helmets. We had batsmen wearing helmets in the late 70s and 80s in our time, but they didn't grow up on helmets. They didn't wear helmets at primary school or junior secondary school and wear helmets throughout their entire life. So they developed a proper technique before they started using the helmets. I think a lot of batsmen who grew up on helmets have always worn a helmet, even when spin bowlers are bowling, have developed some bad technique when it comes to facing fast bowling. A lot of them take their eyes off the ball and turn their heads and turn their backs to the ball, which is not very good. You couldn't do it without helmets, because once you get hit in your head, it can do some serious damage. But they know because they're wearing a helmet, it's unlikely that they'll get serious damage. And I think that has contributed a lot to some poor and faulty technique for some batsmen facing fast bowlers today. But then again, the helmets are there, they grow up on those helmets, and that's what they're accustomed to doing.
You spoke about growing up, Maki. That's my last question, actually. The influence of senior cricketers at club level or state, or in the West Indies case, inter-island level. Ian Bishop has also spoken about this, about how when you were playing club cricket, there'd invariably be some test player or ex-test player there passing on advice.
Not necessarily an ex-test player, just a senior player who has played the game a long time and knows the game very well. When I was a young man at Melbourne Cricket Club, I had two spin bowlers who helped me a lot with my fast bowling. They just knew the game. One was Arthur Barrett, who played for the West Indies. I think he came here in '78 with that West Indies team, a leg spinner. And the other one was Bruce Wellington, a left-arm spinner. Both of those guys played a lot of cricket. They were students of the game, and they helped me as a young man growing up at Melbourne Cricket Club. Those days, you don't see them, or those circumstances rather, you don't see it too much these days, because you don't have a lot of senior guys that are playing cricket now at club level, or even at the domestic level, the first class level, that will help the youngsters along. And that's another thing about an article that Michael Atherton wrote recently in England. I keep on mentioning his name because I think he's a great writer. He writes some fantastic articles. And he made mention of the fact that you don't have a lot of senior spinners now in English cricket because of the high high emphasis on fitness. Someone like Jack Simmons, who played for Lancashire. Jack Simmons played perhaps into his 40s. I don't remember how old he was when he retired. But no one could tell Jack Simmons to go to the gym and lift weights and go and run 20 miles and that sort of thing. And that would not be accepted in English cricket today. So people like Jack Simmons would have gone out of the game and are out of the game now a long time ago. And that is why you don't have the youngsters learning from the senior people so much in all aspects of cricket now, not just in the Caribbean, in England, in many places, because the high emphasis on fitness. And I think that is somewhere that cricket is something that cricket is missing out on again. Sure, you want to be fit, but at the same time, you cannot use the same scale to measure everyone. You got to have some seniority around. You got to have some guys that can teach youngsters still playing the game, and they are not necessarily going to be able to run 10 miles and lift 100 pounds over their head.
I think that's primarily a consequence of domestic cricket all around the world, and I mean domestic first-class cricket being completely neglected in favour of shorter forms, if you like.
No, I don't think it's totally neglected.
Well, I mean in the sense that England, for example, doesn't expect centrally contracted players to play county championship games. Top Indian players hardly ever play Ranji Trophy here. It's slightly better in the Caribbean because the season's January to
slightly better,
slightly
not a great deal better. But again, it's because of the amount of cricket being played. You know, it's difficult to ask guys to go away for 7-8 months and play international cricket and then come back and play again the 6 weeks or 2 months of domestic cricket. It's just a lot of cricket, and they are hoping to get a little bit of rest. Sure, some guys, batsmen in particular, would want to play, but it's difficult again for the fast bowlers. You know, fast bowling is hard work. It's very strenuous work, and you can't expect, as I said before, anybody to bowl fast for 9 months of the year.